Hello, Martin.
Hi, how are you?
Hi, thank you.
You can do your video we see.
Sorry? Come again?
Sorry?
No, I'm saying just come again.
I got
Yes, just come again. I didn't get what you said. Hello. Hello, Martin. Hello, Martin.
Okay. Hello, Catherine. Can you hear me?
Yes, Johnson, I can hear you.
Okay, awesome. Good morning.
Morning, how are you?
I'm very well, thank you.
It's very early for you, I bet, eh?
Yeah, it's 8:34.
Oh, dear.
You guys are 2
so
hours
I don't
ahead.
know what's happening with, yeah, I don't know. Sorry, my apologies. I don't know what was happening there. Yeah, you can hear me now?
Yes, we
Yes,
can.
we
It's
can.
technical issues. They always happen.
Good.
Sorry? Hello?
Hello, I can hear you.
No. Martin was speaking. However, I don't know. I didn't get his last statement.
I think he has gone off.
No, it's all right. Probably maybe it's network issues at his place for Martin.
Okay.
Because I was having technical problems earlier and I was so
Oh, okay.
worried. Yeah.
Sure, I'm trying to make sure that, because I'm connected to a MiFi, but then I also want to make sure that my mobile network is available so that in case there is an issue, I can quickly switch to my mobile network.
That's a good thought. Let me just make sure my mobile also is. And I've been thinking, but I was, what do you call it? When you pussyfoot, you're like, network can bring issues. This is Africa.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I was like, I'm praying, no, maybe it would be stable.
Maybe.
But then just to be sure.
Yeah, just make sure you have yourself covered.
Yeah.
Sure. That's one of the challenges we are facing with e-learning.
Oh,
network,
yes.
computer literacy and the likes.
Oh, yes.
And I'm sure people are going to ask how we can cater for older generations in digital learning. I'm so sure somebody will ask.
Definitely.
I think for me it's more about reorientation basically, because so I was in Singapore a while ago and it was amazing to see their level of digital transformation. That's the level of automation they have in that country. And I'm sure it didn't just start today. You see the old people operating automatic machines, and you'll be like, why are the African older generations not being able to do this? So I had to buy the book by Lee Kuan Yew on the from third to first to really understand how he was able to change the orientation, and it was a step-by-step process. So they started implementing things bit by bit to first of all let them see the value, and then letting them try it, and then that way they were able to get their interest in it, and then when they got them interested, they taught them to use it, and then that's how people started imbibing the digital nature. And I think that's what we also need to do in this part of the continent, because you see, you see, I think our problem is we always rush to giving solutions. And because we rush, we don't do due diligence in ensuring that we carry everybody along. So that way, people don't see the why. They don't see why they are using it. They just know that, okay, we are meant to use it, and then they now start using it for the wrong reasons.
Exactly.
So if we are able to do hands-on tutorial, let them see the value, and then over time we start showing them, and then they start learning to use it, then I think we will be able to achieve something better.
Yeah, true. And I really
there are 14 people waiting already.
No, people are ready.
Yeah.
People want to learn. People want to. What we are saying, there's in terms of the trend, there's positive learning experience. People are eager for information. People right now, people are looking for, is there anything? Can I learn something? Let me see it. Let me watch
try it.
this.
Let me see what I can use it for.
Exactly. Yeah. And with that going for us, I think digital transformation right now is actually paramount because of that aspect that is there. It would be much easier as opposed to long time where somebody tell you, I really don't see the need, but right now more or less the need has been created. Okay, let me pick this call from Martin.
No, it's fine.
Hi, Martin. Yes. Okay, now as we are catching up, seeing what, just discussing in terms of the topic that we have. Sawa. Alrighty. Yes, Johnson.
Yeah.
Yeah, network issues. I told you, even me in the morning, I was so worried. I had to call my ISP and tell them, you people, if by 11 the network is not stable, be sure by 12 I am coming to kill all of you. They told me, okay, madam, relax. We'll make sure it's stable during that period. Because I told them it's very, very important because of what we are doing. I need it to be very stable. Yeah.
Well, here I can't call them to tell them to make it stable. I just have to hope it will be stable.
Okay. For me, at least, I'm a bit. The ones who provide me with the internet, I didn't go for the big ones. I went for a small organization where we have a one-to-one relation. So I asked them to actually give me a dedicated person that in case I had issues, I can always call and text at whatever time. Because again, I do e-coaching and mentoring.
Oh, okay. So
yeah,
you need to
always be online. Yeah. So that's why I didn't go for the big ones. Because again, now I figured you go for the big ones, calling, they won't do much. Yeah.
And because they have so many customers, so it's even hard to hold them to say, you know what, guys, you need to make sure it is available here. They just tell you we are offering to a lot of people, and then exactly. Okay, and then you keep calling, and then somebody else will pick the call, and then will tell you start again, and then when you call again, another person will pick the call, and then they keep pushing you around.
Exactly. So I tried avoiding that. Yes, Martin, welcome back.
Thanks. I don't know what I have to call my guy for internet. I'm having my laptop decided to start misbehaving, so I'm just trying to join my second test laptop.
Okay.
So that's just to have the participants view also.
Okay.
So we have 18 people waiting. So I think we're on track.
Okay.
Where is that? Just trying to look for the link. Oh, good.
Sorry?
No, I found the link. You see, I have another laptop next to me, and I want to connect
Okay.
the control, like my control in me, just to see what people are seeing. I mentioned I was projecting something, and I thought I was, but I wasn't. Oh yeah, no, something else. Yesterday, there was some
Yes.
questions left unanswered. Key was, how do we promote L&D in the organization? That was the most critical, I think. Yeah. Yeah. But
I think promoting.
Sorry?
Yeah, Martin, I'm listening. No, I'm listening.
So that was what was left unanswered yesterday. But I'm thinking also whatever people we don't respond to, we can all. Or what do you guys think?
I didn't get your last statement.
Yeah, just come again on the last statement.
Can
just
you hear
repeat
me?
the last statement.
I'm saying, okay, we had unanswered questions. We had unanswered questions from yesterday, and I can respond to the questions and send to other participants on email. Yeah, that's what I was proposing.
Oh, we answer them and then send them to those that go unanswered, so we can answer and then send. Okay, all right.
No, I think what you can do is you are going to have a link on your website to where they can download the videos if they want to, or the presentation. Now on that page, you're going to have like the questions and the answers there. So let everything be on your website so that it also help take traffic to your website.
Oh yeah. Yes,
because sending it to them might not allow people go to your website. So let them go to the website to download the videos or the presentations, and there on that page or on that page they will see the questions that were asked and then the answers that were given, so that they can always reference it or copy it from there. So it's just to direct traffic to your websites.
Yeah.
So it can be a resource, it can be a resource center or e-library kind of thing for your website.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Okay. Perfect. Okay, so let me just open some document, and we have 22 people online. I just want to open my presentation so that they're just on my quick to access. Okay. Okay. I think we are good.
Okay.
Okay. So we can let guys in and just to test, just run a few tests, everyone on video, everyone just on chat. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Okay. Okay. So, good morning, everyone. We just decided to start this early so that we have about 15 minutes to test our audio and everything, and to ensure that we are ready to go for the day, for today's session. Okay, on chat, if everyone can hear me, you can type yes. Type Y if you can hear me. That we know we are all together. Everyone who's joined us, good morning. And just to run a test, if you can hear me, type for me Y so that we know we are all together. Great, I see we are all together. Great. Okay, I think nobody's having a challenge with the audio, that is cleared. I'd like to thank everyone for joining us for today's session. My request, if you have a HR professional who you know should be listening to this, we'd request you send them a message, what we forwarded to register so that they can join us in. They can join and be part of us today. Okay. If you require the link, let me share the link. You can share with your colleagues for registration in a short, just 1 minute. Then maybe Kate and Johnson, something to say before we start it off in the next 10 minutes.
Welcome everybody. It's good to see you, good to hear from you. Welcome, let's learn from each other. It's a session where we're going to exchange ideas, thoughts, and all that. So you're welcome. Over to you, Johnson.
Good morning, everyone. This is Ademola Johnson from Nigeria. It's 8:50 here. And I'd like to welcome everyone. I hope we are able to add value to you through this session. You can hit us with any questions you have, as long as it's pertaining to the topic we're talking about. And I hope you all enjoy this session. Thank you.
Guys, if you could share where you're logged in from, let us know whether you're in Nairobi, Abuja, anywhere, Jamaica. I understand we have others from Jamaica, across Jamaica, South Africa. Please share on the chat. Let us know where you're logged in from. Thank you. I can see Lorraine from Kenya, Julia, Nairobi. Namu from Kenya. Please share, let us know where you're logged in from. Nancy from Nakuru, that's Kenya. Ragu from Nairobi. Anybody from southern part of Africa, central part of Africa, northern part of Africa? Let us know where you're logged in. Those from out of the continent, let us know where you're logged in.
Okay. I think we still have more people joining. Okay.
Yes, you can see people from Mombasa, Thika. This is nice.
Okay. Our brothers and sisters from West Africa, South Africa, nice to would like to know whether you're here. Seeing people from Laikipia County. No? Okay, someone else from Kericho. Okay. Okay, so maybe as we wait to start off, maybe just if someone was in here yesterday, you're here yesterday, and there was a question that you had that was not answered, maybe we can take the next 5 minutes to respond to it before we start today's session. You can just type it on the chat and then we'll be able to respond it and then in the next 6 minutes, we can start off today's session. Oh, we've seen someone from Nigeria. Welcome very much. So Johnson, you're not alone today. Yes. Oh, yesterday we also had, by the way, thank you. If you're in yesterday's session, please type a yes so that we know how many people we're running with from yesterday. If you're in yesterday's session, just type a yes, a Y, just to show by show of hand, we know who we had from yesterday.
Oh, we have somebody from Harare. Nice,
yeah,
nice.
Welcome. Nice. We still have more people joining us. Hopefully today we hit 400. That would be a good day. Yesterday we did 240, which was very interesting. I was excited the whole day. Okay. So yes, I'm seeing we have people from yesterday also. Great, which is great. And we still have more people joining us. So I'm not seeing any questions. So I'm assuming we answered as many questions from yesterday as possible. But also we will be going through that list of questions and sharing whatever maybe we did not respond to yesterday. Okay. Seeing more people from Kenya. Okay, and I'm seeing also quite a number of people who were there yesterday for today's session. Yeah. Great. So from what I'm seeing, then I'm seeing there might be no question from yesterday. Yeah. Kate, you were in yesterday's session.
Yes, I was.
Okay, great. Maybe you can just share one thing in 2 minutes, which was hit you during that session as a participant yesterday.
As a participant yesterday, what I found or what was very interesting for me was the aspect that what the tools that Ajay mentioned, and also in terms of the future of work that Susan actually mentioned, how we need to, the changing roles of employees in terms of the future of work and the war for talent. That actually struck a chord with me.
Okay. Okay. Johnson, yesterday you also part of us as a participant.
Yes, I
also.
was. Yes, I was.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it was more of the availability of the massive open online content that AJ talked about. And I think I saw a lot of people interested in it, and a lot of people asking questions about the different platforms available where they can access various e-learning. And the fact that right now we have a need to take e-learning seriously, to really invest in digital or virtual learning, and then the new skills that will emerge post-COVID, which as L&D professionals, we need to start preparing our workforce to take the role up. So we need to start developing training programs for those roles that will emerge post-COVID. And I think AJ mentioned things like crisis management and the likes. And also for L&D, you rarely see a training on managing a virtual classroom. I think I attended one of it 2 years ago, but in this part of the world, you don't see people take those courses seriously. And you also mentioned that majority of us are accidental trainers, and we have a lot of train the trainer programs where people are being taught how to be trainers. So I think right now it's important we all take this thing serious. Look out for train the trainer programs, which has an infusion of managing participants, instructional design, all this learning design, and so on, to better deliver programs, be it face-to-face classroom training or even a virtual session.
Okay.
So that was what I was able to pick.
Okay, great. So I think it's time. So let's just hit this session. Let me just first of all welcome everyone for today. Okay, so I'd like to welcome everyone to today's session. My name is Martin Wanjohi of High Performance Africa. I have the pleasure of leading this organization. And
the freezer is too jam-packed now.
Hello, okay. So good morning, just welcome. Sorry, I had to mute everyone. There was some background noise in the background. Just to go with this again. So today I want us to think about learning itself. How do we improve learning? We improve learning by thinking about learning. So again, if we to think about learning, that would help us in improving learning. And I think we have everyone still, and everyone can hear me. I had to mute everyone, so I hope everyone can be hearing us. Okay, so just back to what we were at. Yes, you can hear. Everyone can hear. So going on in a remote, 2018 remote work competency research of Roberta and Nata, that's a mother and daughter team. They came up with 5 competencies that are critical for remote working, which are communication, integration, self-management. As learning professionals, as learning and development professionals, it is our role to teach these competencies to our teams at the workplace. So how and why should we think about learning? One, learning is not a process. Learning is a process, not an event. You going for a training session, that's an event. You learning is a continuous. Starts right from before you attend the training to after you attend the training. If you like to think about it, when you're making a cup of tea, when you want to have a cup of tea, you prepare, you have your ingredients, you mix them, you put them together in the right time, in the right proportions, and use the best cutlery to serve your tea. Making tea has a formula. So does learning. There's a science behind learning. And what exactly should we be thinking about? The total learning solution. And we have all these ways to think around learning, our learning programs, our learning solutions, formal, how we can learn formally, how we can learn informally, and the use of social learning, and make a concrete and a whole learning program that meets the entire needs of everyone. You remember when we were in nursery school, you learn by doing, you learn by messing up. In messing up, there is learning. And the second thing we should what we exactly should think about is the design of the instruction, of the design of the learning instructions. So we have a few things you need to consider: analyzing the learning need, designing the learning solution, in the development of the learning solution, and the evaluation of that learning solution. So this was my introduction. Don't want to take a lot of time. I'd like to welcome everyone again who's just joining us. And then we are starting this session with Kate. I met Kate through a colleague of ours who trains for us, and it has been a pleasure meeting and knowing Kate. And it has been a pleasure knowing Kate. And Kate is in learning and development, and she's been for a few years. And Kate will be taking us through this session. Kate, you can hear me?
Yes, I can.
Yes, welcome. And sorry, I had to mute everyone. At some point, I had some background noise, so I just went to mute everyone as I look for where the source is coming from. So, Kate, let me let you just run right through this with us.
All right. Thank you, Martin. Good morning, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on from where you're logged in. And I'm happy to be here, and I call it learn together, share, have a conversation. Now, as we start this session, I would like...
I'm still looking out for...
Okay, I'd like to start, and I'll start by sharing my screen, and then we can go forward. All right, Martin has said something about me. Well, my name is Catherine Ahwaba Wekesa. Ahwaba has a violent K, but I know a lot of people have a problem pronouncing it. So you can just call me Catherine Wekesa. I'm a certified trainer and performance consultant. Well, I have been in the industry for quite a while, precisely 17 years in HR consultancy, 14 years in L&D, and 14 years in operations consultancy. But today we are sticking with L&D, so I have 14 years in L&D plus 17 years in HR. So let's start this session. We are going to look at the learning opportunities that we have right now in terms of within the crisis that we have. And what we're going to be looking at is, as L&D, we need to step up our game. If we need to step up our game, what are the trends that are there? We are going also to be looking at adapting the workplace learning in the time of coronavirus. We're also going to be looking at reimagining the workplace learning and asynchronous and synchronous modalities that are there. And lastly, we'll look at key things to remember during this time. most of us, this is how our classroom, our conferences, our boardrooms look like. But this doesn't mean that this is the end of learning and development. What it just means is that as learning and development professionals, we need to step up our game. We need to look at what else. We need to innovate, be creative, be agile. And by doing that, it means we'll be stepping up our game. It is not business as usual. This is our new normal. And it being our new normal, looking at what is out there, we're looking at our teams, even before the COVID itself. In 2020, we were having a lot of teams which were distributed. You would find somebody working in Kenya with somebody in Nigeria, another one in Lusaka, another one in South Africa, and that was a team. Now, even without the COVID that is going on, we also have what has been the workforce that is there right now is that there's continuous learning culture. People are learning left, right, and center. Now, there's also increased automation and new technology in the workplace to help in terms of productivity. And then employees want to learn more at work. This is a very key component in the workforce for 2020, as well as our friend checked in, the COVID-19. So that is the kind of thing that our workforce is facing. And this being the issue that our workforce is facing, what are the trends in 2020? We already have positive learning experiences. People are looking at whatever they are learning, the functionality, the meaningfulness, the value, the pleasure that it gives them. That is what they are looking for. And the soft skills this is 2020, in the learning aspect, in the learning sphere, we have communication, active listening, adaptability, calmness, empathy, patience, positivity. These are the soft skills that are actually there in the learning and development in terms of trends. Also, there is continuous learning. Right now, you'll find what you are currently actually doing is continuous learning. Those who are in
na kuna huyo mtu alikuwa anapiga kelele.
like in terms of the trends, these are the small trainings, but which are digital, that you introduce slowly and you show the value that it has to employees. That's how you promote, and you help employees adapt to this new learning. You also need to explore alternative digital learning strategies. We already have the in-person, the classroom strategies that we already set. We already had training programs set earlier, but then now our friend COVID-19 checked in. So what? All we need to do is come up with other strategies which are digitally enhanced because of the lockdown, because of the curfew, because of the social distancing that we need to, because now that means all our conferences and classrooms, we cannot be able to hold in-person trainings. As you do that, another way for you adapting is making sure that, and Susan actually also mentioned and touched this, that you need to actually practice and prepare multiple outcomes. We are all very hopeful that by end of May, we will be enjoying post-COVID, but we don't know. We might have post-COVID being August, or we might have post-COVID being November. We already had set training programs in January. So with all those training programs that we had set, it is time to start making simulations of if post-COVID is by May, what are we going to be? What our learning strategies would be? If it's by August, what is important for us? Which training programs are we going to put digitally? And if you're going to put which ones, what material, what are the areas that we really need to emphasize? So those are the outcomes you need to start thinking, such that, remember, not everything will be loaded digitally. Not everything will be put on the digital framework. And as you think about that, what happens is that for your employees, you're actually making them feel connected, feel that they are actually, you still care about them, that the learning opportunities are still continuing. It becomes a bright spot for them. Now, I want you to start reimagining a sustainable future of professional learning. What do you think that would be? We can put our answers on the chat. What do you think sustainable future of professional learning post-COVID or during COVID, what would it be? I'm looking forward to your answers actually. And as I wait for your answers, of which we will combine and put everything together, as Martin mentioned in the introduction, that right now the science of learning is really, really important in terms of you need to be very intentional in terms of the learning experience. Because as I mentioned earlier, not all classroom learning material programs can be put or will be put on the virtual learning platforms. So some of those experiences may not work on the virtual. So you have to be very intentional. You have to be able to look at what really that you need to put there. And by you looking at it and being very intentional, you have to make sure that you think it through and you make and use the act of association. Remember, right now, we are due to social distancing, there's an aspect of feeling that we are isolated. So you might want to actually, when you're trying to upskill your people, that you load all the training programs, but some of these training programs may not really work on the platforms that you want to put. So you have to really sit down and think, what would work for you? And what do you need to put out there? What would go to e-coaching? What will go to the e-learning? What will go to e-mentoring? Those are aspects that you need to do. And when you're doing that, you're thinking it through in terms of combining the thought process and making sure that there's association in terms of content and social interaction. Also, remember that as you're reimagining now the new future of professional learning, those who are the givers and takers of information is changing. If you've been able to notice that of late, what is happening is that everybody is creating small videos. If you're an expert in a certain area, you're creating small videos, either loading it on Facebook, loading it on YouTube, going to whichever platform and showing people how to do. Yo-Yo-Ma did that, showing people how to play music. Andrea also did that. A lot of people are doing all this. So the givers and takers are not only the instructional designers, or they're not just the trainers or the instructors. Now, with that, what does it mean? That you can actually use the subject matter to give micro-learning within your organization. Make sure you guide them through the instructional design model. of whatever micro-learning you're creating. Now, the other thing is you have to reimagine the post-learning, the transfer and the performance of all these tools that you're going to be using. How are you going to transfer classroom to that? How are you going to transfer knowledge? How are you going to measure? How is it going to perform? Now, those are the things you need to reimagine. What are you focusing on? What job aids do you need to create? If you're using the instructional design, how are you combining the reflective practices, the social presence with the cognitive presence, the teaching presence? How are you combining it with the cognitive? What do you want at the end of the day? Will actually inform the performance support tools that you'll be using and the contextual transfer that will be there. Now, as you're doing that, the other thing is you have to remember that there's synchronous and asynchronous modality of how, during this COVID, opportunities that you have. Now, synchronous, mainly what it means is the real time, what we are actually doing. By show of hands, by logging on the chat, just say yes, those who have actually attended previous Zoom and any other virtual webinar, whatever it has been, whatever you have been attending, that is which is real time, where you can see an instructor, where you can see a facilitator. That is what we call synchronous modality, or it is actually real time, live. Then asynchronous is whereby now you have materials loaded to it's self-paced, where you can log in anytime. Possibly what we would have done with Martin, I would have sat here, recorded this video, handed it over to him, and then he loads it to the website. Now, that would be asynchronous. That is self-paced modality that you do. And then we have a discussion forum where people log in and we discuss issues and aspects. Now, as a learning and development professional, during this COVID time, you need to think in terms of these two. These are the two extremes that exist, but there's an in-betweener which is called blended learning. Now, when you're thinking about asynchronous or the self-paced modality, the key thing that you're looking at is, in terms of, even for the synchronous, is the social interaction and the content interaction for these two modalities. One is that the content interaction is that for asynchronous, there's a lot of narrated presentation. For those who have used LinkedIn Learning, Coursera, Udemy, edX, those are what we call asynchronous. There are videos which are loaded, and then after every video, what happens is that you answer questions, scenarios are given, you discuss. There's a lot of content that is loaded on it. And then in terms of the interaction, what it does is that there's questions are asked to elicit social interaction between the participants, and then there's feedback from the instructor, and then there are practice questions that you do. For the synchronous, which is live, what we are doing right now, there's presentation, the instructor, the facilitator is present. So you can ask me questions on the chat. We can do a poll. When you're asking me questions on the chat and we do video discussions and polls and all those insights and we give you resources, we are live, we are enhancing the social interaction. And when we are doing this video, because it is live right now, what is happening is there's content via video, via presentation. So as a learning and development professional, what happens is that during the opportunity that is there during this time, you can either combine the two or pick one, whatever works for you. As you're picking one, let's look at asynchronous learning. This is the self-paced. The advantages is that it's flexible. Anybody can log in, anybody can, you're flexible, you can do it, you can log in and do it at your own time. It's flexible. Limitation is that by the time I'm logging in, Martin already has logged out. Johnson already logged out yesterday. So I will feel isolated, like I'm doing the course alone. The tools, like I've mentioned earlier, is the LinkedIn training, Coursera, Udemy, edX. Those are just examples. And then we have the synchronous. The advantage of this is that there's social interaction. Remember, before we started this, what did we do? We interacted with the participants about 10 minutes before the session started. In between, I've asked you to think about the future of professional training, professional learning. I've also asked you how many have either used Udemy or Zoom or done any other webinar. Those are social interaction. The advantage is that we can interact, you can ask questions, and there's feedback which is immediate. The only limitation is if you're in a different time zone, sometimes it will be inflexible, or you have a meeting, it will be inflexible for you. The other thing is technology would be also an issue. We might find that you may not have a laptop, or the network is not working, or if it's there, it is a bit shaky. We know our continent in Africa, so sometimes the technical components might be a hindrance. But examples of tools used here is the Zoom, what we are using right now. There's Adobe Connect, there's WebEx, of which some of this is what I was doing like last week. Last week I had trainings, I held trainings, 2-day full training, but what we did is after every 1 hour, we were breaking for 8 minutes for people to walk around, and then we had coffee breaks. And with that coffee breaks, you're allowed to, you actually went for coffee or tea, whatever drink or water that you wanted. And we actually had water and chatted, nothing to do with the training. I actually had an opportunity to meet each other of the participants' family. So it was a little bit interesting, and it poses very interesting aspects. Now, with all this that is said and done, what do you need to remember? That you need to know the people that you're training. For you to choose the opportunities that are available right now in terms of e-learning, you really need to know so that you can determine whether you're going to use synchronous or asynchronous or a combination, because not everything can be moved from classroom training to online training. Some things may not work, or knowing your participants that the people that you're going to train, we already know probably asynchronous may not work. You need to test them. Evaluating that becomes a problem, which brings me to point number 2. You need to integrate the different materials and tools that are there. Mix everything, but things that would work for you. Evaluate your training. When you're evaluating your training, making sure that you use the Kirkpatrick evaluation. Evaluate your training from different levels, whether it is synchronous or asynchronous. Make sure you evaluate it. And Ajayi mentioned yesterday that learning and development analytics will come in very, very key at this point. This is where it will actually help you. And then you need to learn how to balance quality and urgency. We already had training programs that we had decided way on by January or November last year that this is what will be our training program for 2020. But then Susan mentioned yesterday, you need to go back to the drawing board and the strategy and look at what skills you need to really train. And looking at that, now you need to balance in terms of the tools that you will use. There are very good tools out there, but just picking one tool that has everything, sometimes it may not just work for you. Or picking several tools and integrating them again may not work for you. You might pick Zoom. Zoom has what we call whiteboard, and it works for you. It is simple. Or you can pick an LMS, have it designed for you, and then load it or integrate it with so many other things, it may not work for you. So look at creating a balance between quality and urgency. And make sure that gamification happens. But as you're making sure that gamification happens, not everything in terms of gamification can work. Not all activities would work in terms of e-learning, the opportunities that are there. Pick the right ones. See what your outcome you want it to be. Remember when I was saying reimagining the post-learning, you'll be trying to create a balance in terms of the social presence, the cognitive presence, and the teaching presence. So you're trying to do a mix and match of all these, whether you're looking for support, discussions, or whether it is content that you're looking for, or whether it is the climate that you want to set. Pick the right activities. And I would want to pen off or sign off by saying that as L&D professionals, what used to happen long time was that, I mean, we were instructors, we were trainers, we were facilitators, and we used to be the sage at the stage. The game has changed. Right now, we need to guide on the side, guide the organization in terms of learning and development, guide on the side in terms of the right modality that would work for our organization, that would be effective, that would give us the result, help the organization achieve the goal that is there, that we need to achieve. Now, with that, you need to go back and think, what would work for you? What is best for you? And as you think about that, make sure you're stepping up the game for L&D. Thank you. Martin, I hand everything back over to you. That is all that I have in terms of opportunities.
Just before you hand back, we proceed to Johnson. There's a minute, there was some interference and I muted everyone. Apologies for that to everyone. The section of trends for 2020, if you can just run that again briefly. Then just that section so that everyone at least is able to get that part.
Okay.
No? Yes.
All right.
Yeah, that.
This session. Okay. Now, in terms of the trends, these are the trends for the workforce. When you look at the workforce right now, even before the COVID actually checked in, what was there is that the teams were actually being distributed in terms of not everybody was co-located the way long time it used to be. You would have, say, a team that where we have people, somebody in Nairobi, we have somebody in Kampala, another one in Abuja, another one in Harare, and you're all one team working together. That is in terms of the workforce that we are looking at as L&D. And then right now in 2020, in terms of the culture that is there is that everybody wants to improve their skills. So there's a continuous learning culture within the organizations, as well as there's a lot of automation and new technology coming into the workplace to help us in terms of productivity. So those are the things that you need to be aware of as a learning and development, and also that your employees want to learn more. As they want to learn more, meaning that there is a culture of learning, and that factoring in terms of automation that is there, and the teams, whether they're co-located or geographically distributed, we have COVID, which is there right now. So as you're thinking in terms of the opportunities that are there, you have to keep these in mind, as well as the trends in terms of the learning itself, whereby because of the continuous learning culture, there's positive learning experiences that people are looking for. These experiences are in terms of people want training programs that are functional. They can take whatever they're learning to go and actually use it, that it is meaningful, that it is pleasurable, that it is convenient for them. Now, in terms of soft skills, and Susan actually touched on the soft skills, what we are looking at is a lot of communication skills will be sought, because of now we are all distributed wherever we are. Active listening, adaptability, calmness in this time of crisis, empathy, patience, and positivity. So these are soft skills that would be easy to run with during this current period that we are actually going through. And then, as I mentioned, continuous learning. And then you will find that nowadays also people, organizations have switched to micro learning as opposed to having a five full day. Let me pick a very good example. What we are doing currently right now, we have 1 hour segments. That is micro learning. Yesterday and today we are having learning and development. So we are doing micro learning on learning and development. So even organizations have also switched to these kind of trainings. And also they have also moved to aspects of doing video-based learnings, whereby videos are recorded and then employees log in and view those the learning program from there, and then they're able to pick. And then artificial intelligence being used in terms of the learning and development. Ajay mentioned yesterday in terms of using it also in learning and development analytics. So you must also consider that this is actually there. And also, you'll find globally, augmented and virtual reality is also being considered as a trend in learning and development. Fortune 500, most of them have picked these in terms of they're looking at, at that time they're looking at cutting costs. But right now, it's not a matter of cutting costs because these were for those very highly expensive and sensitive areas like the airlines and whatnot. But then right now, it is not about cost, but it's because of the COVID-19. So these are the trends in terms of the workforce and trends in terms of learning. I hope now I've been able to cover all between the trends in learning and trends in workforce that learning and development professionals you should consider as you're coming up with your e-learning strategies going forward. Back to you, Martin.
Okay, thank you very much, Catherine. I hope we have been able to get everybody back on that session where we lost track. To the participants right now, maybe one question before I bring in Johnson. What is the purpose of learning? What is the purpose of learning? You can type your response in the chat box, and then we can have a look at that as we move ahead. Right now, I'd like to invite Johnson, who's going to look at a very interesting topic, the rise of e-learning. Are we getting it right? I don't know, people have heard of something called automated system. So are we doing the same thing with e-learning? And then let's see what Johnson says, and then we can measure and see whether our organization is doing the right thing. Johnson, okay, we can now pick up from here.
Hi.
Welcome.
Okay. Good morning, everyone. Let me just share my screen so we can start off from there. Okay. Please give me a few minutes. Okay, I think this is fine. So my name is Ademola Johnson. I am an instructional designer, e-learning developer, and also a facilitator. And I've been doing this for quite some time now. I've worked with a number of consulting firms and from financial organizations. And so far, what I've been doing in these organizations is to either develop e-learning courses, manage learning management systems, or come up with instructional materials for classroom and e-learning training. And today I will be discussing on a I think it's a very interesting topic, the rise and rise of e-learning. Are we getting it right? And in my session, basically, what I'll be doing is to state the important components of e-learning. First of all, we need to establish the fact that e-learning is on the rise. I think I have some data to back that one. And then we also assess our organization's e-learning.
Johnson. Hello, Johnson.
Hello.
Hello, Johnson.
Hello.
I think there was an issue with your audio. Can hear you, Johnson. There's an issue with your audio. Maybe you can.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
What you can do, you can kill video to help with the presentation.
Okay, and I think my internet.
Yeah. Okay, let me let you just
Okay, I
get
think
back
let
to
me
your
just do that.
presentation. Yes. Yes.
Okay, okay.
I apologize for the
Initial error. Can everyone hear me? If you can hear me, please just put yes in the chat box so that I can proceed. Okay, awesome. Thank you. Thank you. So my session, I'll be talking about the important components of an e-learning solution. And with what I share, we would be able to assess what we currently have in our various organizations to see if we are getting it right. And also with that, we'll be able to identify the areas of improvement in our organization's e-learning, things we need to do right and how we can go about it. So let me just dive right in. So first, it's important to know what e-learning is. And I thought for this session, I'd rather pick it from the definition. And from what we all know, e-learning is more like delivering learning via electronic platform. And the key word here is outside the traditional classroom. That means that if you are in a classroom training and some form of maybe presentation or videos are being shown, that cannot be categorized as e-learning because you are being made to come to the classroom for it. However, if you are outside a formal settings, maybe in your homes, in the office, and you are able to take some courses or some learning resources on your own, that can be categorized as e-learning. And what is e-learning? Because you cannot say, you cannot define electronic learning without understanding what learning is. And learning is the acquisition of knowledge through study, experience, or being taught. So if you want to link this back to e-learning, if there is no acquisition of knowledge, and that's why there's something called the effectiveness of learning, it's possible for you to take a program and actually not learn. It's possible for you to be in a classroom and not learn. So you only say learning has occurred if there is an actual acquisition of knowledge. And starting to go granular a bit more, you say you've only acquired something when you obtain it for yourself. That means learning can occur or can only occur when you've acquired knowledge or skills through an e-learning through an electronic platform. So I don't know if that's of what e-learning is about. So you acquire your knowledge, skills through an electronic platforms. And the question, have some form of e-learning in place? Are we, do we, or are we assigned to e-learning courses? For all of us hello?
Hello, we can hear you now.
Okay, awesome, thank you. If you currently offer some form of e-learning in your organization, just let me see your responses, yes. And if you don't, let me see your responses, no. That when I say offer e-learning, either you are being assigned to attend e-learning programs or on your own, you go online to do e-learning. Okay. I see quite a number of people saying no and a number of people saying yes. Partially. What does partially mean? Okay. I think we have more of yes. Both. Okay. Thank you. Let's proceed. So I'm currently running a survey. I've not finished because I'm still receiving responses. And so far, as at Friday, when I developed the slides, I've gotten 200 responses. And the demographic of my response is we had more of people between the 1977 and 1997, and they all work in different organizations, starting from SMEs to large corporate organizations. And what 71% of them said is that in their organization, they currently have some form of e-learning. As a matter of fact, 15% of the 71% said that, you know what, we only offer e-learning in our organization. And that's to show that truly, if we go back to maybe like some 7 years, 8 years back, we wouldn't have had this number of people coming out to say, you know what, we are doing some form of e-learning. And then I went further to check some data from LinkedIn Learning, from eLearning Africa report, from ATD, and from MarketWatch UK. And this is what I got. 57% says, you know what, we are going to spend more time in online learning than they did 3 years ago. This is 2020 report. And 57% also said they are going to increase their budget in e-learning. I know we say that, yes, they are cutting the budget on training. However, while they are cutting the budget on training, what is happening is they are now reshuffling how much is going into classroom and how much is going into e-learning. And if we want to be realistic with ourselves, we know that the cost of classroom training is really high. By the time we look at the cost of securing facilities, cost of transportations, the opportunity cost, the things you have to forego to actually make classroom training run. Now, this is excluding the cost you pay the facilitators or the materials you have to get. So what organizations are now looking into is seeing how they can maximize training using e-learning. From eLearning Reports Africa, from their 2019 report, 57% said in the next 20 years, e-learning, virtual learning, it's really going to be big in Africa. And then going to ATD, still comes to with the pressure on budget, a lot of people are going to start converting their classroom training to e-learning. And what this is saying is that if for any reason we are not ourselves preparing for or creating an environment where we would easily adopt or leverage on e-learning, we would be left out. So as much as possible, this is just trying to emphasize the fact that, you know what, guys, this e-learning has come to stay and is really going to take a whole lot, a big aspect of our training. And from the COVID incidents, Zoom has recorded a 300% increase in the usage of their platform. 300% increase. That means that more and more people are seeing the need to actually leverage on digital platform. And then Microsoft Teams has recorded 775%. That's on it pre-COVID. Now with COVID, a lot of people are coming on board. So this is just to show that yes, e-learning is really, really something everybody needs to take serious. And the incident, the pandemic is also making sure that we also go that route. Now the question is, are we getting it right? Because it's possible for you to have e-learning and then not get value from it. Remember, from our definition of e-learning, you can only say it is e-learning when people actually acquire some skills or knowledge of some sort. Now, if you have an e-learning solution and there's no acquisition of skills, that means that your e-learning is really not good. That means you are not getting it right. So in my next slides, what I'm going to show us is I'm going to just give us a dive into how e-learning solution works, what is required, what is considered. And then I'm also going to talk about the evaluation process, how you actually evaluate e-learning. Catherine mentioned Kirkpatrick model earlier, and that's what I'm going to talk more about in this process. So she also mentioned the synchronous and asynchronous learning, and I think it's important we talk about it here too, because when you are also going for e-learning, you need to first of all determine which of it you are going for. The synchronous learning is the form in which the learners and the facilitators are live in real time. Now, this does not mean they have to be in the same room in terms of the classroom, but the fact that I'm here in Lagos, Nigeria, facilitating, and you are everywhere, you are listening at the same time, it is also some form of synchronous learning. And the kind of e-learning that comes under this category are the webinars, the podcasts, and the whiteboard sessions and the likes. And then the asynchronous is when we are not there in real time. So if this webinar is recorded and you are watching it again, then it becomes an asynchronous form of learning. Initially, it was synchronous, but because I'm not more giving it live and you are not watching it when I'm there, then it becomes asynchronous. Other forms of learning that falls under this asynchronous are your regular e-learning course that you log on a platform that you watch, a video or interactive course that you watch. And depending on these two e-learning, it also determines the way you come up with your content, the way and the platform you use. So for this synchronous learning, basically, just as we have here, I can only come up with my presentation slide and then show it. For synchronous learning, I cannot afford to embed things like videos or things like more animations for it, because I also need to consider the fact that a lot of people are using their internet bandwidth. And if I start playing more videos on my slide, then some of them might be able to see it and some of them might not be able to see it, because the whole essence is that you have to create a very good experience for your learners. Whereas in asynchronous learning, I can afford to load it with videos, load it with PDFs, load it with different things for the learners to be able to see, because they are watching it at their pace. Now for the platforms too, like I said earlier, you need to consider the platform to use. If it's for synchronous, the platforms you are going to use is probably the likes of Teams, the likes of Zoom, the Adobe Connect that Catherine mentions, and the likes. However, for the asynchronous learning, then we need to consider using things like maybe the website, the LMS, and so on. However, I'm going to talk about these two things to consider under both things later. So for content, it's important to know that when you are developing your training content, you either develop it as an off-the-shelf content or as a bespoke content. And I'll try to explain what both of them mean. And off-the-shelf content is when, for example, as an SME, you sit down and you say, you know what, I think there is a gap generally based on my experience in maybe communication, for example. And then you yourself, you come up with your objective based on what you've seen or what you think. You come up with your objective and then you develop content and you push it out to anybody that needs it. Now, the bespoke content is such that you have identified a need from a particular group of people, most times in an organization, and you said, you know what, these guys need this thing, and we need to develop a training content for them for their particular or specific environment. Now, this case originates not only from SMEs, as in the case of off-the-shelf, but from learning and development professionals or the HR who conduct the training needs analysis. So once they conduct the training needs analysis, they say, okay, you know what, guys, this is the needs we've identified, and then this is how we are going to bridge it. So those are the two kind of training content you have. And for these two types, the three main things to consider are the objectives of the training, the target audience, and the environment they are going to apply it. Now, I'm going to talk about each of them one after the other. For training development, the objectives of your training is really important. As a matter of fact, it's one of the most important things of your training, because once you get your objectives right, then everything would be easy. And for the off-the-shelf training, the objective is determined by the subject matter expert who sits down and say, like, you know what, I think there is a gap I need to bridge, and then it develops the objectives. Now, for the bespoke, the objective emanates from the gap, the training needs analysis, or the gap identified from the people you want to develop the training for. So it could be a reactive training or a proactive training. A reactive training in the sense that the performance gap is already affecting work and then you need to bridge it quick. The proactive is in the sense that you have foreseen an organizational need and then you feel, okay, you need to train people, preparing them for that need. So whichever way, you need to come up with an objective, and your objective should state what exactly you expect your learners to do after the program. What do you want them to do? So it's not a case of, dear XYZ, you have been nominated for this training, go and take it. No, it should have something like, the training is, at the end of this training, you should be able to do this, this, this. Some objectives even go a step deeper in saying, given this particular scenario, you should be able to do this, this, this when you successfully complete the training. And that's how you carve your learning objective. Now, the learning objective is what is going to influence your training content. So I typically give this example when, if for example, you are developing an onboarding course for new staff in your organization and you are training them on maybe the core values, for example. Now, for developing learning objectives, I'm going to go out a bit to talk about different learning domains. And it's something you can also read after the session, the Bloom's taxonomy. Now, Bloom came up with, I think, 7 or 6 learning domains in which you can design your objectives around. And then it's knowledge, understanding, application, creation, and evaluation. So those are the different learning domains you can create your objective. My scenario when I said, okay, developing core values, the training for your organization core values for the learners to just know, that's the knowledge, to just know what the core values are. Your content is simply going to be around, these are the list of the core values, and these are the core values in the organization, and this is what they mean. And then at the end of the day, you ask them questions around, do you know the core values? List the core values and define them. That stops at the knowledge. However, if you want to go a step further to developing a content to see if they understand, then your evaluation on the content is going to be around, after listing the core values and then defining the core values, you also give them room to explain the core values in their own terms. That way, you are checking if they really digested what's in normal terms. And that's how you check for understanding. Now, if you want to go a step further to say, you know what, guys, let me train you on how to apply the core values, which is a 3rd level. Then after you've explained, they've defined it in their own terms, you go ahead and give scenarios of where each of these core values are being applied. And then you also test them with scenarios of how they would also apply these core values. Now, when you do that, what happens is you are taking into consideration the environment they are going to apply it. Because when you are giving them scenarios, you don't want them to give them scenarios outside the office space that they are going to apply. You give them scenarios in the office. So you give them scenarios and then they are able to tell you whether they can apply it right or not. And based on the feedback they give, you are also able to let them know if they did it right or not. Now, if you want to go a step further to say, you know what, guys, I want to teach you how to create core values, then you are not going to limit the core and how core values relate goals, how organization goals is being cascaded into the mission and vision, and then the core values, and how each of the core values feeds into the mission and vision. And then you also go step further in bringing different organizations, vision, mission, and then core values, so that they can see how the core values relate into the organization goals. And then you give them a scenario for them to also create core values from a goal you probably crafted. This way, they tend to see how this thing works, and then they are able to create similar core values. So I'm sure, as you can see, as we progress on the different kind of learning domains, we can see how the content structure changes a bit. And that's why your objectives really influences the way you create your content. And that's why it's really important you consider the objectives of your training. And then the target audience. Now, the target audience is about understanding the people this training is for. The way you develop training for younger generations is definitely different from the way you develop training for adult generation. So you need to see how you can have a blend. Catherine mentioned earlier that there are some cases you need to blend the synchronous and asynchronous form of learning to ensure that you give the right feel to your content design. And that is based on understanding the target audience you are developing your trainings for. And also for the environment, like I stated in the scenario, when you are giving examples, the choice of words you use it is important that you know the environment you are developing it for. I remember developing a course for an Islamic bank, and I was talking about savings, and I used piggy bank as an illustration, forgetting the fact that the Muslims don't like pigs. But because, you know, the general term is that, you know, piggy bank is what represents savings. So when our attention was called to that, we had to change the illustration. So that's about understanding the environment your content is for when you are creating your course. And also, this is in a situation whereby you want to be the one to probably own your e-learning courses and then own your platforms. There are situations where, you know what, you just say, guys, let's just subscribe to the massive open online content platforms, the likes of Coursera, the likes of Udemy, the likes of EDX, and the likes. Now, one thing about this thing is, when you are assigning trainings on those platforms, it is also important you go through the learning objectives before you assign. You don't just go on the topic and then you assign. Most times what organizations do is they just look at the topic and be like, okay, yes, I want to train my people on Excel. They look at a course on introduction to Excel and then they send it to their people, forgetting the fact that there are a lot of courses captured introduction to Excel, and each of them have different content. So it is important that you really look at the objective and then the outline of the program before you assign it to your people. So that's all on the content bit. And then a little, we're going into the platforms. Like I said earlier, depending on how you plan to implement it, whether it is synchronous or asynchronous, you use that in selecting your platform. If you want to use a combination of both, you use the teleconferencing platform and then the other platform for the asynchronous. For synchronous, the platforms you use are, as we've mentioned earlier, the Teams, the Zoom, the Adobe Connect, and the likes. However, for the asynchronous, you can use a whole lot of platforms. You can use your website. Your website is in a situation whereby you just want to have the content out there. You are not really bothered about who is taking the course or if the person is completing the course. You just host the course on your platform. People go to the platform, take the course, and then that's it. However, if you want to really track the activities of your learners, you want to know who is taking the course, when they are finishing the course, and the likes, then you need to use a learning management system. A learning management system is the platform that helps you to store your training content and also track the learner's activities. Now, there are two ways the learning management can be deployed too, because your learning management system can be deployed either in your organization. Having it in your organization can restrict the accessibility. Sometimes it only means that people can only access it when they are in the building. And then you can also deploy it in the cloud where, you know, anybody anywhere can access it. And then you can also deploy your courses on removable devices. That's looking at your flash drive, looking at your CD drives, looking at learning dongles. Now, like the website, deploying it on your removable device means that you really are not interested in tracking learners' activities. However, there is the learning dongle that we have now that syncs with a particular learning management system. Most times your own learning management system. I'm sure Skillsoft also has something similar. And the way it works is you can access the courses locally, that's on the drive. However, once you are connected to the internet, what happens is it syncs with the LMS in the cloud. So that way they're able to bridge the gap of accessing courses locally and then on the web. So that's about the different platform. So after developing or deploying your e-learning courses, you know, you need to really find out if learning has really occurred. And that's why it is important you evaluate your training solutions. You evaluate it from the side of the learner and also on the transfer of learning. Catherine mentioned earlier, she talked about the Kirkpatrick model, and that's like the
schedule your payment.
Okay, let's wait for
List your payments.
Okay, I think I
Hello?
found it. Yeah, there's someone on. You can go on, Jason.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, awesome.
Go on.
So
Yeah.
that's why it is important to evaluate your training. You need to know how the learners accept the learning, how relevant the course was, and so on. Also, in developing learning, there are a lot of frameworks, there are a lot of principles you also need to abide by when you are developing, especially when you are developing for adults. There is something called the Gagne's level of instruction. And this gives like step-by-step guide on the kind of instructions you put in your courses to ensure that your learners really appreciate and then can relate or use and apply the courses you've developed. So once you've developed these courses, or you have your platform, or you've assigned the courses, the steps in evaluating the learning, as Catherine said, is going by the Kirkpatrick model. And the Kirkpatrick model has 4 stages of evaluation. The first stage is to test, to check the reaction. And that's where you check if your learners really appreciate this training. Can they relate to it? Do they like the training? How was the facilitator? And that's why for those of us that are used to classroom training, some of us, we see that after training, we do evaluation on how was the facilitator, how was the meal, how was the environment, how was the content, and so on and so forth. And that's what we are checking on this first level. Now, the whole essence of this is because if for any reason your learners don't like the training or they don't find it relevant, there is no way they can apply it on the job. So most times when you get this place and you are getting a lot of people saying giving low score here, then there is a challenge with the training. Now the second is to check learning. The second is to check
Johnson,
learning and to see if, yes please.
Sorry there's a noise from the background. Let me ask everyone to mute their microphones so that we have at least everyone can pick up nicely. Or yes, let's everyone just mute and ensure you're mute so that we don't have interruptions coming up. Okay. So if we're all on mute, then we can. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So the learning is
just
now
1 minute,
check.
Johnson, just 1 minute. Let me mute everyone. Then let me unmute you.
Okay. No problem.
Okay. Johnson, you can go on now. Everyone is mute. Yeah. Hello, Johnson.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So I'm here, please. Hello.
Okay. Yeah. We can go on. Yes. Hello. Everyone can hear us? Can hear Jason? Type yes if you can hear Jason, and then we can go on. Yes. Jason, you can go on. Jason, can you hear us? Jason. Hello, Jason, you can unmute yourself. Hello. Apologies, everyone. Small challenge with unmuting Jason, but let me work on it, and I would like us to all stay mute as we move on. Okay. Jason, Johnson, you can hear me? Hello, Jason, Johnson, can you hear me? Hello, Johnson.
Yes, I can.
Perfect. I couldn't unmute you from this, and I think. Hello, maybe you can just pick up from where we were.
I'm so sorry. My
ahead.
network
Yes.
is. Yes. I'm so sorry. My network is really having some challenges. Okay, so I was on the second level of training evaluation.
Hello, Jason. I think it's network issues from your end. Johnson, you can hear us? You can hear me? Maybe as we try to get Johnson to sort out, we can type our questions on the chat.
To know what your learners know before the training, and then the post-assessment will check if your learners have actually understood or maybe been able to acquire some form of skills or knowledge after the training. Now, the second phase is the behavior. Now, the behavior is now where you measure the transfer of learning to the job. And the thing about this phase is that it's not something you can do immediately after the program, like the reaction on learning. You need to give like some time for these learners to actually go on the job, then work for like maybe a month, 2 or 3. Most times I advise people to make it like a 3-month plan. So they try and apply whatever it is they've learned on the job, and then you evaluate them from surveys from them or from their supervisors to see if they are really able to apply what they've learned on the job. And then the fourth is the result. Now, this result can either be the return on investment or the return on expectation. The return on how much you are able to gain from the training you have deployed. Now, this bit can be done because for sales professional, if you develop training or deliver training for sales professional, it is easy to measure the returns you get from them. That is, you're saying, you know what, guys, before this is how much you were selling. Now, after the training, you are selling this. It's easy to measure. But for people who offer soft skills, you might not be able to easily measure it. So you might need to tie it to some form of their activities, because you know if they improve in a particular way of doing things, it automatically reduces the cost, their cost on the organization, and that way the organization is receiving is making something from it. And that's where we have the return on expectation. So, and that's why crafting your learning objective is important, because your learning objective will feed into the performance gap you have identified, and then that way you are able to say, you know what, guys, this is what the result is about.
Johnson. I think Johnson is having some technical issues with the internet on his side. Maybe as we wait for the resolution of that, if you have any questions, you could share here on the chat with at this point. I'd like to thank the 230 HR professionals who've made it to this session. If you have any questions, kindly put it on the chat, and then we can have Johnson to work on it when he comes back. Are we all, everyone can hear me? Just type a yes to know that we're all together. Type Y to know we are all together on this. Great, great. I see we're all together. So let me ask any questions anyone might have if you can place it on the chat. You can put your question on the chat as maybe trying to raise Johnson to join us. But what we promise to do, we'll have Johnson record that session and then it will be available so that we can overcome the challenges we've had with this. Yeah. Okay, Catherine?
Yes.
Catherine, you're with us?
Yes,
maybe
I am.
what we can do, we can run a recording of for Jason, and then we can, it would help answer cover the gaps that might have arisen due to the internet challenges. But this is a true learning of the challenges of e-learning. Yeah? There's no other way to learn it other than to experience it.
Oh yes, oh yes.
Okay, the thing, 2 questions. Maybe Catherine, you can have a look at it about learning analytics. Yeah, Coach Richie is asking about learning analytics. If I will reframe his question, so and there's another question also. I think that's the only question we have right now. So maybe you can touch on that about learning analytics.
Okay. Now, what you'll find is that mostly organizations never used to use learning analytics before. This would be the reason because most of us used to just measure in terms of the reactional, what Johnson was speaking about earlier. Yeah. But now, with the use of what we now, artificial intelligence, we are actually able to now monitor and actually be able to analyze in terms of our lessons from different areas and different levels, which calls for you to be very, very keen in terms of when you're looking at, you're analyzing the analytics in terms of learning, you need to look at various things that he mentioned, the statistics, the dynamics of the students. Those are the data that you'll be looking at. In terms of, you'll be looking at to discover the patterns, you're trying to predict, look at the trends in terms of performance, the engagement, and the plan. So these are the areas that you'll be looking at in terms of learning analytics.
Okay. Okay. I'm seeing another question. What is the best practice on LMS? How to keep employees engaged on the e-learning platform? To respond to that, that is taken care of when you're designing the program, so that all the engagement, all the activities are taken care of at the designing at the design level, right? So there was something also measuring the ROI of a normal classroom training is a challenge. So would like to hear more on this. Kate, you're the performance consultant, learning performance.
Now, when it comes to ROI, remember that now you are actually, yes, it takes quite a lot of, it's actually, to start with, it's usually, most people don't go to that level, to the end level. Now, what happens is that if you're to measure the ROI of training, you have to be able to capture it from the beginning. And you are looking at it that from the beginning of your designing of that training. So from there, at the end, when you look at the whole end up to probably the end of the year, when you look at that now, you are able to actually get the ROI. But if you just want to calculate the ROI and you did not start from the beginning, the designing, using either the ADDIE or some model of designing your program, you will have a challenge calculating the ROI. You need to start from the objectives. You need to start from the beginning, from the design, from your thinking. Remember when I talked about science of learning, when you're thinking it through, Were you when you're coming up with objectives, the Bloom taxonomy that Johnson was talking about? If you're able to actually look at the taxonomy from level 1 to the level 7, as you're designing, you will be able now to actually calculate at the end of the day, at the end of the year, look at the return on investment of your training. Have the people understood? Have they been able to use it at the end of the day?
Okay. Just looking at the question, there was another question on relationship of AI and HR, which is a very large topic that we would not be able to answer in this session.
True.
So I think what we could do that is we could answer it in our resources. So we'll answer it as part of the resources. Then I'm seeing another question on learning deficiency of a participant as a basis of laying off. For me, one, why do we have learning? We have learning to build competency. So if we're not building that competency, then learning should not be a basis of laying off. It should be learning is for building competencies. Just to narrow again a little bit, first day we did strategy, and when you do strategy for your organization, you come up with competencies that you do not have within the organization to achieve your business objectives. Then the next thing is to develop those competencies through learning and development. That's the process, the key process of learning. There's some other questions, and I think what we will do, oh yeah, there's another question for you here. Catherine, kindly explain on gamification and its relevance in learning. Let me throw that to you, Catherine.
All right. Now, in relation to gamification, now remember that even in classroom training, we learn when we enjoy something. We learn when we are able to connect something. Gamification actually just brings that. The activities that we do, are they exciting? Are they actually speaking? When you're putting all that together, that the activities that people are doing have a relation to the learning component that you want them to understand, to know first, and then to be able to go through until they're able to use it. And putting it in a game, it's easier now taken in and understood. Remember again, in the learning curve, what usually happens is it's easy for you will listen to what I'm saying, but I know if there's when you're doing the learning component, if after 30 minutes or 40 minutes, the first thing that I said in the beginning is actually forgotten. But then when you use gamification, what happens is you're reinforcing that aspect. You are actually reinforcing the objectives that you want them to understand. You are reinforcing the elements that you want them to understand. And when you're combining in terms of either the social and the teaching presence together, you are now able to actually put the knowing and the usability of the learning together. Any other question? I hope I've answered it well, but if in more, in the resources, we'll add more in terms of the gamification. Martin?
Okay, so as I think the question has been well answered. Now, I saw something, Andrew Masese, question about culture change to e-learning. I think this should be handled like any other change in culture in the organization. What is in it for the employees? What is your plan to handle the change management? So it would follow the normal change management process. What's in it for them? What's the benefit? Once people understand why they need to move to e-learning, then you have a buy-in. There's also another question around budgets for training. But there was something around budgets for training. about justifying. Oh yeah, when planning a training, where are the cost constraints? What would be the one thing you could sacrifice as HR, but still have a great training? So you want to build a Mercedes on a Toyota budget. Yeah. And again, as we said, when you're designing the training, all these come in, and you realize the biggest, I think, once we develop a process of developing trainings, then we can see where the constraints are, and then we can see what we can do with or without. I think, oh yeah, maybe I'll throw this to you, Catherine. Apathy to learning and development is a big challenge for SME and family businesses. How do we get through such impediments?
Wow. Okay. Now, you'll find that mostly SMEs, most of them consider that learning is something for big organizations, not really for small organizations. But then for the need for you to, how you need to show them that there's need for people learning is to show connections to the business goal. How? By, if your employees are able to go for training, in terms of productivity, what is the ROI of training? Actually, it goes back to the ROI. If I am a business person and you tell me that you want to come and train my people, and I have an SME that I need to pay you a certain amount, say I need to pay you about $500 per day for you to train my team, and I'll start thinking in terms of these $500, what else would I do? But if you show me the reason and the end game at the end of it all, what will my organization achieve? Link it to that. I'm sure, and I'll tell you for sure, if you actually draw the connection between the training itself and the business goal and the outcome that will come at the end of the day, what the organization will get. That is the beginning and starting of showing SMEs that you can actually training is important, because most of them, and most of the time what happens is when you go to the SMEs, we tell them we need you need your people to be trained on customer service because one or two, when I came to your premises, I encountered this customer service was not good and all that, but then that's it. You're not showing me the value for me as the business owner. Show me the value, I will get the interest. You do not show me the value that at the end of it all, I will get this. I will, in terms of my organization, it will affect this, it will affect that. The organization will get this and it will get that, and it will increase either revenue and whatnot. If you show that linkage, then you're good. That is the starting point. I hope I've been able to answer it.
I think you've been able to answer it. To bring this session to a close, I think we have 25 minutes past the 1 hour we had set aside. I think we learned yesterday 1 hour is too short. Now, as we come to a close for this session, one, we will share all the content, the videos that we have. We will share the content next week. We will have them on our website. We'll share the link to the content plus the resources. So we've had that question from a number of people, so we will provide that. Now, as we come to the end of this session, just to close, I'd like to share my screen. Sorry. Okay, just give me 1 minute. So we had this one question. What is the true purpose of learning? And for me, the true purpose of learning is an organization has these competencies. It needs competencies X to take it from point A to point B, which we achieve through needs analysis. And from that, we're able to see the performance gap that needs to be covered. So all training, all learning should cover some, or should be to bridge some gap in terms of competencies. Training or learning sessions are not a reward to employees. Also, this is what I'm talking about. We have current employee current competencies, your performance gaps, your required employees competencies. This morning, we had sent an email for pre-reading of the materials. By a show of, if you read this, kindly type yes, so that we know how many people actually read this. Just type yes on chat, then we can know how many people were able to read. Great, great. And in that, this is an article we did about, I think, in the month of February, how to know what is the right training to attend. And you will see we have given a guideline. What do you need to look out for? As we said, you need to see a return on investment. If the objectives of that training cannot even be measured, how can you measure what was learned? So you need to see that the training that the firm or the training your employees are going for can be measured. I'm seeing a number of people did not receive. We're going to resend it. We're also going to place it on our website. You can have a read at that. It's a detailed, the key things that we would look at. And then the key thing, the learning objectives for learning. Look at the total learning solution, not just to spend time. Learning, going for learning is not going to receive information. You can read a book for information. Though reading books also provides information and learning. But if you're going to, we all like going to beautiful hotels where the meal is arranged properly. It is a focus. You love the presentation. The same thing should happen for learning. You see what you're going to eat, to have for your growth and development. I think having said that, all questions not answered will be answered we'll compile all the questions and avail the responses on our website as also as a part of resources for everyone. If you have any question, you can email the question directly to me. My email is martin@iperformanceafrica.com. I'm just typing it on chat, and then you can send me an email if you have any question that was not answered. If you have any other thing that you would want to look at, then if you'd like iPerformance Africa to assess what you're doing on learning and development, you can email us and we will be able to do a review of the same, and then we can be able to advise what your organization needs. This time, thank you very much for this session. Next week we continue with this for day 4 and 5, and we will be running performance management. So we started out with strategy, we've done learning and development. The next week we would have a look at performance management. One of the key topics is how do you measure performance of remote employees? We will be sharing all that with next week. Any other question? Kindly email it to me at martin@performanceafrica. Let me just type it on chat. iperformanceafrica.com, and you can also visit our website iperformanceafrica.com. And with this, I'd like to thank everyone for this session. Our apologies for the hitches here and there, but at least the lesson learned is what are the challenges for e-learning. Those are some of the challenges. If you'd like iPerformance Africa to help you with designing e-learning for your organization, we would appreciate, you can also send me an email. We will have open e-learning programs, possibly before the last week of this month, and we're welcome to test it out. With that, I'd like to thank everyone for this, and guys, see you next week on the 22nd and the 23rd. Have a great day, everyone.
Thank you, Martin. Bye-bye, and see you next week.
See you next week. Bye-bye.